This meeting is the meeting for the public consultation on the parking bylaw and the proposed amendments. The issue here tonight is to give everybody a chance to have their say about the bylaw. And anybody that wants to have a say, please come up to the podium, use the microphone so that we can have everything recorded. Anybody that's online that would like to make any comments, please press the raise your hand button and we'll give you an opportunity. We want to keep this thing moving along smoothly and give everybody a chance. We want to make sure that the meeting stays respectful. If the meeting does get out of control and is not being respectful, we will end the meeting. So let's begin with, I guess, basically a little background on this. So the bylaw was brought forward originally in 2022. In 2023, it was finally passed. And at that time, it included a number of schedules which allowed for separate areas within the municipality for parking. The idea of this amendment was actually to bring forward those sections, those schedules, and actually put details of what that parking looks like. That's why we're having the consultation, is we want to hear from you what you think about the schedules, what you think about the fees that should be charged, understanding that there's a whole lot of need for bringing fees and charges, and that's part and parcel of what the parking bylaw is all about, is actually bringing in those fees and charges to cover the public areas that where they're used by the public and being maintained by the municipality. Ultimately, if they're not being paid for by fees and charges, it's paid for by the general tax base. So we're looking to see where everybody's comments are on that and what you would like to see as possibly coming forward. So with that, I want to open the floor. If anybody would like to start up and take the mic and have a chance to speak, please be my guest.
I will.
You get the whole idea.
I live out on Castles. I launch my boat at public access probably once a week. I'm sick of moving around fish shacks. And if there is some way, I pay $5, $10, $15 every time you launch, as long as I can use that access unobstructed.
Okay, and we've heard that comment already about the ice shacks. Public Works did go down to try to resolve some of the issues for this season and move the ice shacks over and made them so that they're not going to be in the way of the ramp. However, we have taken that into consideration. I'm sorry, that's Jim Crutch. Barry?
Can I stand here, Tom?
You want the microphone?
Do I need a microphone?
No, yes, in order to work.
Oh, okay. Barry Graham, just an addendum to what Jim had to say with regards to the castle ramp. I think we find too, with ramping a boat there quite frequently, and I'm quite willing to pay to ramp my boats at whatever ramp. It's the parking, the day parking, or the quick parking of a vehicle and trailer that then encumber you entirely to try to get lined up to go down that ramp, or some ramps in town. The parking even here in this parking lot of trying to get your vehicle and your boat in there and get turned around and ramped safely has to be addressed. So that, these areas should be no parking, specifically. No parking of anything in those areas to allow people to come in and ramp freely.
So you're talking about right at the ramps themselves?
Right at the ramps themselves, correct. Okay.
Because the areas such as over here at the Catholic building, there is public parking over there. There is not supposed to be any parking along the ramp, and that's already been notified or been addressed in the past. It's one thing about having it addressed, but now we've got to get the bylaw in place so we can actually enforce it.
Yeah, it's dangerous, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Might as well. Barry, he ain't lazy.
Derek Marone, Simo Island, permanent resident. got a couple of questions. We're talking about a fee schedule for transient parking, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I also noticed in the addendum, there was a structure for having basically a meter maid or a parking attendant to come under this new hook system. I forget what the name of the system was.
The system is called Honk, and it's actually a software process that'll give us the tool that we need to charge fees and to be able to identify who's paying us.
Okay, having said that, then that would mean you would have to have somebody full-time on staff to monitor the parking down there at the landings or castles or wherever.
That's something that's going to be considered in the future, yes. It doesn't necessarily have to be full-time, but we will have to have somebody.
Okay. I've been on the parking list for probably the last 8 to 10 years down there. Is there any inroads on utilizing what you have down there now to satisfy the backlog of parking applications that you have? I know of at least 6 people that have been on that list as long as I have.
So to say that we're going to address it at this moment, no, because we currently got, it's being addressed through through a joint committee on the parking and the landing. So we're not technically trying to deal with it at this moment. I mean, at some point in the future, yes, we will have to deal with it once everything's been sorted out on the joint committee. But in the meantime, we're looking at for the overflow parking that goes out onto the Lake Temagami access road, which for the most part, right from the parking lots all the way down past Boat Line Bay is lined up every long weekend and other times during the summer.
I was talking to John about the big plan of the parking down there. This contractor's designated area, which is anybody and their brother can park there whenever they want. You have the opportunity and the areas to create, one, satisfy your parking problem at for your waiting list by making them designated paid parking spots, which is an annual revenue. Whether you increase that problem. The other one is I'm a contractor on the lake. So most of us contractors park down at the very south dock. Again, designated spots, paid parking, annual revenue, and a designated spot. As a contractor, you need one for your own, one for the owner, and one for the visitors, because you can't get people on the lake to work. So 9 times out of 10, you have employees coming in. Again, as a contractor, we're willing to pay. I don't care if it's $300 a year for the spots. I think we're willing to pay that.
And again, I understand that one. I totally appreciate where you're coming from on that one. Been down there a number of times to look at the problem with the designated parking spots for the contract park. Already done a count on it to know what kind of numbers we're looking at for the spaces. And you're right, that is a prime area that should be addressed, and addressed for more reasons than just the fact that it's not being used right now by contractors. It's being abused.
Oh, it's free parking.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, this is a revenue stream. You know, you're looking. Don't get me wrong. I read the documents, and you know, down south where all these other people have this honk system, which is great because they've got a larger infrastructure, they've got deeper pockets, and up here you're looking at 4 months out of the year where you have that influx of tourism.
Okay, and again, the honk system, the nice thing about this system, it's 100% controlled by the municipality. It's our software, they bring it into us. We get to shut it off and turn it on at any given time. So let's say that we're only needed for 3 months of the year and we operate it for 3 months of the year. We shut it down during the winter time. But at the same time, I've been down in that landing during the winter time and had parking lined up right down the road from all the skidoers and everything that come in.
Yeah.
So it doesn't just end in the summertime. We have to look at it from that point as well. The other part of that is there's a large piece of property sitting there right now where the tower is, which the municipality does not have control on. And right now the trailers are in there. We are talking to Tech Industries, because Tech Industries is the ones that have the control on it, That piece of land is not actually under an LUP, it's actually under a lease agreement, and that's with the M&R, the Ministry of Mining and Northern Development. They're the ones that are controlling that particular part until 2028. So we
I'll
are.
go over to Loon Lodge, like that whole parking area?
There's a section in there that currently is being used for trailer overflow parking.
Yeah.
That particular area is not part of the LUP right now. And I just finished reviewing that with the Ministry of Natural Resources, so I did get some very accurate information.
Right, and that was another revenue stream that I saw, like, they were talking about having permits for trailers.
Mhm.
Again, as a contractor, I have trailers in that parking lot, and I'm more than willing to pay for a parking ticket, or like Bowline has their stickers on their trailers, annual. But I just asked Wendell, and that system's not in place yet either, but you said it's not until 2028.
For the lease agreement right now, the lease agreement is between Tech and the Ministry of Northern Development and Mines. It expires in 2028. If they renew in 2028, then it remains as a lease. And the reason that it was explained to me was in 2018, the Ministry of Natural Resources got out of three-way agreements. That property used to be under a three-way agreement between Tech, the Ministry of Natural Resources, and then the municipality of Temagami. We had an agreement to be in there up until then.
And who is Tech?
Tech is, they're a mining corporation, and they have most of the mining claims down in that area.
So it's a mining claim.
It's a mining claim that's earning under a lease agreement.
Right, well, I just see a lot of areas that you have accessible right now for revenue. If you're talking, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on the pay scale for tourists coming in with boats? Has anybody given an idea?
Well, yeah, we have, but we were hoping that we would hear from the public as to what they would like to see. The reality is, to be fair for a northern municipality, we're anywhere from $5 to $10 a day for the parking for those that are coming in as transient park. We're looking at if you want to do longer, and here's the nice thing about the honk system. The honk system can be adjusted for anything that we want, anywhere from hourly parking to half day to full day, weekly, monthly, even yearly. And personal, where I'm pushing for right now is to bring in honks so that we can take care of the issue with the parking down there. And I'm not talking about taking care of it in a different way than what's already there. Those that are on an invoice system, we can fix it up so that it becomes annually done through the app, and we wouldn't have to worry about those invoices having to go out. It cuts down the manpower and everything. So it's just an administration thing that can be reduced. But at the end of the day, the other part of this is we have so much leeway when it comes to the ability. We have the ability that we can actually give out discounted permits to, let's say we got a fishing tournament going on. And while that's going on, we decide that we're going to encourage them to come in with their fishing derby, and we're going to offer discounted parking or even free launches. The idea is to catch all that and to give them the opportunities so that we'll encourage people to come back. And the idea is that we're not just talking about the landing. This is the other part of this. It's the entire municipality. Martin River, smooth water, east and west. It's all got to be captured. And when we look at it, it's more than just what we're looking at the landing. And I have to admit, there's a large part of it there. But let's look at the urban core right now. We got our launch right here, which that parking lot quite often during the summertime is full. You can't get any parking. I get complaints about the people that have the parking spots over here. We have a number of parking lots that are around here that are already full of stuff that are not being managed. We have no way to manage them at the moment. And the whole idea is to get everything under control. We'll get there, but it's all going to take getting the passing of the bylaw, set the rules, set the standards, and at the same time, bring in fees and charges. Will it take an extra an extra person? Absolutely, because there's no way I'm doing it by myself. I've already explained that to Lala, and I've explained to some of the councillors that I've talked with. At the end of the day, we do have the ability. The good part about that is, at the end of the day, the position pays for itself. We're not going to put a hit on the tax burden onto the taxpayer's back. We'll cover that cost as well as put extra cost in to cover the infrastructure, repairing parking lots, maintaining the signs that have to go up on all these lots, and to make it so that everybody's getting treated fairly.
Okay, just a question.
Yep.
Just on what you just said there. There's no extra cost to the taxpayers, the permanent residents, wherever. But then you mentioned that, you know, the extra cost to upgrade the roads and put the signs on. Do you think that this system is going to formulate enough revenue to cover all of that?
Yes, and the reason being, there's a two-part system here. The two-part system is, the first part is, it's the paid parking. Second part of the system is, it's the illegal parking, which now we go after for tickets. From a provincial officer's point of view, that's revenue. It's all revenue. The province takes a percentage, we take the other percentage. All that goes back into the coffers of the municipality, which is what helps offset all the cost.
And so having said that, is the OPP on board with this?
It's not the OPP.
It's not the OPP, so the
It's gonna be-
municipality, you're the bylaw officer?
Yep.
You're gonna spend a lot of time, or somebody is gonna,
There's going to be, I can tell you at the end of the day, there will be more than one of us. At the end of the day, we're going to have a second officer coming in. And that's the only way we can do this right.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be honest, I can't keep up with what I have right now. I'm going absolutely crazy. I'm only supposed to be 3 days a week. The reality is I can't do 3 days a week. I'm already in here more than that. And I can't keep up.
That's, when you get down to dollars and cents, is there, just a quick question, is there a spreadsheet, something that's broken down all of this formula and the revenue and how this is gonna come about?
Not at this particular time, there isn't.
Okay. So we're still in the preliminary stages.
We're very much in the preliminary, but at the same time, we're ready to move forward quickly as soon as we can bring everything back. And the idea of public consultation is to get all the comments coming back. We formulate the consultation, we bring it back to council, along with everything that we come out of this, whether it be the fees and everything else. Am I already doing that bookmarking of the different municipalities? Absolutely. That's already been taking place. There are municipalities up here that are already using HOMP, as a matter of fact, in the north. And the latest one was Dryden. They just took it on because it worked for them, which is why we know that it'll work for us. We had the conversations with them. We had a clear conversation about how this is going to be brought in and where it goes and everything else. The nice part is it's a QR code. So let's give another example. We got a tower up there, which is a tourist attraction. It brings in a lot of people on a regular basis. A lot of people that come into our campsites down here, and they wanted something to do. They head up there to that tower. We turn around and do the right thing instead of just letting that be a free tourist attraction and start charging everybody that brings a car up there. Charge them, say, $3 a trip to go in. We're not charging by the person, we're charging by the carload. You get 10 cars going in there, that's $30 right there. You do that 3 days out of a weekend, you're at $90. If you turn around and multiply that, and I take that number as a low number, considering what I do know is coming into the camp, with their basis, what was it, somewhere around 25,000 or something like that per year? That's even if we ended up with a percentage, small percentage of that coming up here to use that tower, we're going to bring in a large amount of revenue, which all goes back into bringing up and maintaining the lands, putting the signage in, and once again, we are not going to burden the taxpayers' backs with this. And I can tell you from my point of view, I am a taxpayer in this town. I don't want any more taxes than I'm already getting.
All right, thank you.
Maybe you have somebody online?
Oh.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
My name is Nolan Jorgensen. I live on Lake Temagami year round. I am in the southwest arm near Narrows Island, Camp Temagami. My main purpose for tuning into the meeting, I was hoping to be there in person today, but work went a little late. Um, and you kind of touched on, I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman at the front with the microphone. I don't know his name.
My
Um,
name's Daryl Bell.
I do. You kind of touched on it that you're ready to really move with the new system, which I'm in complete understanding and agreeing of having some kind of fees to recover some of the costs that the town has for all the parking and everything. My concern is kind of what Derek just touched on. Um, some loose ends in the whole parking system. As a permanent resident, if we're talking $10 a day, I've also been on the waiting list for a parking spot for a long time. I'm over, I'm somewhere about 4 years, I think we've been on it, on both the power list and the unpowered list, which apparently there's separate lists for. Um, with all that being said, I know people that have like 3 to 6 of them. I know that some parking spots are being sold on the black market, so to speak, rather than being turned back into the town. My point that I'm getting at is a lot of these loose ends, I think, need a solution. Otherwise, because I don't have a spot, I'm nervous. I'm going to be realizing this $10 a day. Again, I have no issue with an annual fee, but $10 a day when you live here year round is, we're getting close to 4 grand, which seems kind of crazy to me. And then on top of that, also what Derek was saying, that having workers come in, it's already hard enough. That I again, and $10 a day for something like that seems a little steep if they're going to be there 7 days a week. Now, yes, a business can realize that test, but ultimately that's just going back to the cottager. And although you're mentioning that you're not wanting taxes to increase, indirect costs to the cottager will significantly increase between, the new garbage rules where we have to do dedicated trips basically. And now with this, I don't know if there's any solutions. If we're not going to be able to get, the reserve spot problem solved anytime soon and you guys are ready to move. One thing I've wondered about is if for the interim, people that can identify truly as a permanent resident, and whether that's like a bill that you bring into town to prove that you have your main address on the utility bill, like a lot of big corporations do, to at least get a slip that if you're going to be in the contractor parking, that's where I currently park. I'm worried it's going to completely fill up once we move to a fee system of people trying to avoid it. And that's where I'm at with that. I don't know if you want to touch base on anything I've said so far.
Well, just the one part that I'd like to touch base on, that's about the fact that you're a resident. We do recognize that and we do appreciate that. At the same time, while we're looking at bringing the fees and charges, what we're looking at is also giving the opportunity for the residents to have a break on this. We're not looking to see you being hit with the total bill. Like either we give out, and this is still something to be discussed and that'll have to be discussed quite a bit further with council as well as staff. It's going to be a possibility that we're either going to exempt maybe one permit per household, or that there'd be a discounted rate for it, but we are considering that and we are taking that into consideration.
And really that's the crux of, what my concern's been, that, I don't want to completely flip to a dramatic subject, but I saw the garbage thing kind of get ramrodded through, and then we're backpedaling to find a proper solution, which I think the new hours are a better solution. But I'm worried with this parking thing that, it could be even more of an issue if we just ramrod it through without tying up the loose ends. I understand through what you just said of lease agreements and different things, it's a little hard to come up with that solution quick, but I guess as long as there is a solution found, so that, again, 4 grand versus, I think, what is it, $150 a year right now? 4 grand towards any normal annual fee is a big difference. I think very important.
Okay, one more thing I'd like to add on to that. When we bring this forward, we're not bringing this forward with the intention of bringing it forward municipal wide. We're talking about bringing it in say the urban core and starting it small and then expanding as it proves itself. We're not looking to try to put everybody out of their way or anything else. We want to give everybody a chance to understand the system, make sure the system works properly, and then make sure everybody's happy with it before we go into a full-blown operation.
You have a time frame on that? Like from the urban core to broadcasting to
that's something that will have to be discussed for the future. I believe that we'll have to have a conversation with council to see where council feels comfortable with this. Anybody
Okay,
else?
well, I guess I'll just stay tuned to hearing the solution. Again, it's just a big concern that the costs are managed to those that are permanent resident or basic permanent resident. And it's not just because of being a selfish permanent resident. The cost, as I said, will just end up getting forwarded to the cottager, and they've already gotten pretty crazy for a lot of people on this lake. And that's all I got.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Your comments will be added to the list. Does anybody else have anything they want to add to this? Please.
Thank you. My name is Gwen. I've been on Island 49 in the summers for over 50 years. And so I'm just wanting to speak to the smaller issue of Temagami Marine Road, where we parked forever, and I had decades to look at how things go well there and how sometimes they don't. There's been such a huge uptick in daily use, people coming in just to fish for the day. And on top of that, with changes around Temagami Marine, and people choosing to trailer their boats that are on the northeast arm as opposed to leaving them at the marina. That's kind of a transitional thing that's happening as well. So I know it's a small problem. And there's a lot less of us using that access road than those that use the hub, because it's just the northeast arm. But there are plenty of times where we've turned around our boat because we can't dock at the docks, or we've come up with our car and we're having to find a less than desirable parking space because every car with a trailer is taking up 2 spaces, and it's more and more of a problem. And just in terms of parking fees, we'd be happy to pay an annual fee, but I do think that whether you're full-time or seasonal, you're a taxpayer. And so addressing and noting the fact that we would expect for a parking fee to acknowledge that even as a seasonal resident, that we are taxpayers, and it needs to be workable. Thank you.
Okay, so just note, none of the parking problems in this municipality are small problems. They are on every single corner of this municipality. It doesn't matter which landing we're on. If you have a boat launch, you have a problem with boats and trailers. The whole goal of this is to try and alleviate some of those problems and to clean it up, make it so that it's usable and make it so that it's going to be respectful for everybody. So you want to come up?
Yeah. Me again. You mentioned that people that are here longer than just 1 day, if they're here 30 days, are going to get a break. Why?
It's not necessarily whether they're going to be here 30 days or not. That's not what I'm looking at. That's not what the municipality is looking at. We're looking at, and this goes along with the standard that operates throughout most municipalities that charge for parking rates. They have, and this is why we're asking whether anybody, for everybody's comments, most municipalities do come up with either half-day, daily, weekly, even monthly rates. What we're asking is what everybody would like to see as far as our rates go, whether they want to see monthly rates or whether they want to see just daily and possibly weekly or half-day, and keep those rates at that simplified system. We're not setting anything in stone at the moment. We're opening the door for everybody to give us their thoughts on this.
Right, and I agree with the permanent residents really getting a really good break on this. Point blank period. Our taxes right now are paying for the access. But when somebody comes to use an access once or gonna be here for a week, it's $5 a day or $10 a day. Period. You're here for a month, $10 a day. Simple.
And thank you for that, because we appreciate hearing from it. and we're not disagreeing, but we're asking for everybody to give their comments, so thank you on that. Yes, sir.
My name is Fred Todd. I'm now on 159 on the north end. I've been on that island for 75 years. I park at the end of Strathcona and the company come. This parking thing has been a problem for as long as I can remember. Biff and I probably 25 years ago had a user pay conversation one night at my place. User pay for somebody like me that spends the summer. This is my principal residence. I can't stay there in the winter. There's no hydro. There's no services. I'm paying more taxes here in Temagami. Oh, sorry. I'm paying more taxes in Temagami than I did in my house in Cobalt, where I could park my car at my house, no fee. I could park downtown, no fee. I had garbage. I had all the services. I don't use the arena. I don't use the library. I don't use a lot of things. If you want to charge me to park, then I think you better start charging people to use your other services that they use, that I don't use. You can't just come along and gouge somebody for parking when your taxes are as high as they are here. No services. I can't even afford to put in a plumbing line, like a septic. So this is a bit crazy.
Okay, again, we thank you for your comments, and just so you're aware, we're not trying to gouge. The idea is to bring in a system that is going to look after everything, and we have to treat everybody fairly. So once again, we are looking at, and we do respect the fact that residents are here, and that we want to come up with solutions. Nothing's written in stone at the moment. Great.
Just a couple of clarifications. Our parking areas, or the parking areas here in Temagami, are covered under an LUP, are they not?
Yes, they are, most of them, yes.
And those LUPs are currently, they're up to date, they're current, we have ratified LUPs.
Absolutely.
Have we the ability to expand on those LUPs?
Not at the present moment, but doesn't mean that we can't have discussion with the ministry on that.
Because I think that's the biggest problem at hand, is the size of the LUP no longer accommodates this municipality in every circumstance. And the land is there for the most part. In my limited knowledge of those areas, there is a considerable crown land. I know that, and Wendell remembers back in 2006 in that term of council, we'd had established at Strathcona with the crown the ability to take all those fish shacks and put them back up the Crab Lake Road, or what was known as the Crab Lake Road. That was to have been cleared out and given, never happened. And you can see now Strathcona is a plugged landing. I mean, it's because it's a free ride. So I think has to be addressed is the expansion of the LUPs to further address all the influx of new people coming to Temagami. As a realtor, I see it all the time. That's the first question I'm asked with a cottage. Where's my boat stuff? How do I, where do I park? Where do my guests park? It's a question I can't answer. It's a crapshoot. It's a roll of the dice. And it shouldn't be with a world-class destination like this. It should not be that way.
Okay, and taking Strathcona as an example. Strathcona, you're right, is plugged up with ice shacks, so there's no question. And I would say probably 25% of the ice shacks down there should not even be there. They should be sitting in a landfill site. That's my opinion right now. I'm sorry, I do have my opinion on it. I have to deal with this stuff right now. However, at the same time, that's part and parcel of what the land use permit bylaw was all about. At the present time, the present one that I'm bringing forward right now is actually to scrap the original bylaw because the intent of the bylaw is not what it's turned into. The new bylaw will be, there will be no ice huts. Take it all home. We'll allow it for this season just because it's impossible to move them now. But at the end of the day, next year, we should be into a clean spot where we have proper parking areas, where we can bring in for the boats, the cars, the trailers, and the trucks and trailers, and make it so they can properly set up and park properly, and be able to charge for that and bring it back to cover the cost.
And on that note, he left. Susan Olenek from Rabbit Lake. I don't have a comment yet. I just have a question for clarification, please, Carol. So when I read the bylaw, I'm trying to understand the difference between Schedule A, which is designated parking spaces and municipal parking lots, Schedule C, which is designated municipal parking lots, and then Schedule E, designated paid parking zones. I don't understand what the differences there are and why we need three.
Because each one of the schedules refers to a different area in the municipality. It's about the maps now. It's not about trying to talk about the parking. And each one of those schedules referring to those maps, we got to talk about the types of parking as far as how it's going to be charged or not charged, or whether it's daily, weekly, even hourly. Because at the end of the day, some of these parking lots, as an example, the parking lots right around this municipal office are not used on a regular basis for weekly parking or anything else. They're used for hourly, half day, full day, but you're not staying here on long term. This is short-term parking. We take into Rabbit Lake Road, and I do know that one's dear to you. However, that parking down there can become quite a nightmare, and I'm very much aware of what it turns into down there. The idea there is to try and clean up so that the parking is being put into a proper perspective, so that they're either the vehicles that are being stored down there or being used down there are either being paid by daily or weekly, whatever the case may be. But that's where we ought to look for, because at the same time, almost every one of our landings is being used by day trippers, and those day trippers come in. They come in because they got, and I'm going to say it just because I can. They're coming in because it's the free. They come in, they use our municipality, and they don't bring anything into our municipality. They don't walk into our grocery stores, our gas stations, or anything else. They walk in, they launch the boat because they don't cost them a dime. They go out, they have a good time, and they leave their garbage behind and go back home. That's what we've been dealing with for quite a while now.
I understand, but, and thank you for your explanation, but I still don't see the difference between the existing bylaw and the amendments and the maps. And I see the same list of lots in every one of those schedules.
We didn't change the list. That's not what this was about. The amendments were only bringing in rules to those lists. Prior to this, all it said.
On the hourly, daily stuff.
Exactly. And prior to this, all it said was fees will be charged in accordance with the fees and charges bylaw. It didn't specify. Now we need to specify.
Okay, thanks. Let me have comments. I just needed that clarification.
Anybody else want to?
I just got one question.
Sure.
When you were talking about, again, we're going back to the system of issuing paid parking. Does the municipality have the legal authority to issue tickets?
Yes. I have the legal authority right now.
Okay, so I just want clarification,
Yep.
under what are we?
Under the Provincial Offences Act. I'm already a provincial offences officer, and I'm already certified.
And does the municipality have anything in place for receiving these funds and designating it to this program?
Absolutely. We're already signed up with the provincial courts, and we're already on the ARIS system, so that we do have that ability. And we have been in that position for quite a long time now.
Okay, I just know that in the recent years down at the landing, nobody had the authority to issue fines, fees.
They didn't have the fees because they didn't have the bylaw in place. Fines were difficult to issue because there was only certain areas that could be enforced. As an example, our bylaw has to clearly indicate what the rules are. The only area that was clearly indicated down there, and I mean clearly indicated, was the prohibited parking area on the north side of Lake Temagami Access Road, from 600 meters east of Boatline Bay down to the bend into the parking lots. That was the only area that was actually enforceable. The other areas in the individual parking spots, yes, you can enforce them too, and we do. It's a challenge to get down there to deal with that. The idea of having this system in place, along with prohibited parking and paid parking on the overflow for the road, means that there's a justification for heading down there. Because right now, if I'm sitting up in the North Town site and I get a call saying that somebody wants me down there because someone's in their spot down there, that's a challenge. And it's going to be a cost too, because the cost is my time and everything else running down there and running back and forth. And one person is not doing this, which is why they've already been told we need another one, if not two.
Yeah, I've been going through the math on that. Just a quick question while we're talking about enforcement. So the closest place to get a tow truck, if you, is the Cobalt Car Clinic.
Yes, I'm aware of that. And Cobalt has actually already said that they're really not
They're not going to
interested.
go down the mine road because sometimes the conditions are unbearable.
Yeah, and they're not interested at this time to take on that. We were talking already to see whether we can negotiate with anybody to bring in a contract tow truck here and setting up our own pound facility. And we have the ability under the provincial legislation for that.
Have the ability, but you have the infrastructure. Again, now you need a parking lot to put all these vehicles.
Once again, as long as we have a piece of property that is legally and zoned properly and within the area, within our control, and we do have the ability. But again, it's whether or not we can get everybody in together to support that.
Okay, and I just want to check, under the Provincial Offenses and Act, you're the one that's registered, correct?
That's correct.
So for heaven's sake, I think you're doing a fantastic job. Yeah, you win the lottery and you're going, I quit.
Okay, let me put it this way. So
You were gonna say something. about
as much as I'm going to regret saying this, I retired from Mississauga after 30 years. This place talked me out of retirement to come back. I did in 2019. I stayed until 23 June, and I walked for personal reasons. Our new CAO convinced me to come back again. And I'm back, and I've said that I will stay to see change, and that's what I'm here for. And I want to see change, but I've also told them that they need to look at succession planning. So we have to identify that. Because, yeah, you're right.
So the only, like, the authority right now lies with you.
At the present moment, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clarification, Daryl?
Yeah.
Can you explain whether or not the municipality can subcontract bylaw officers from other municipalities?
The municipality can enter into the contract agreements with other municipalities. That's something that has been done. So, and I'm not sure the exact number. I believe it's somewhere around 17 of the municipalities north of us are all subcontracting into a group, an association where they use an officer up that way. I do know that that officer has been servicing everybody and is run off his feet. However, we're fortunate that we're here and that I've got time that I'm going to spend here. But at the same time, I do want to see somebody else coming in.
I've been a long-time resident of Lake Temagami, and this is an old issue, and it's been on for discussion for many years before you got here. The discussion almost always is the same. It's those darn Crown Land users that are getting a free ride. They don't spend anything in our community, and they're getting a free ride on ramps, parking, all this kind of stuff. And so the cottagers on Lake Temagami, and you know, I've been in business on Lake Temagami, I know quite a few of them, and I've had this discussion with them. And I would have to say there's a very widespread view that they are totally in favor of parking fees as long as they don't apply to taxpayers. There's support for parking fees, but not if you're a taxpayer. That if you're a taxpayer, you are already paying. And that is a very widespread view on Lake Temagami, by my experience. So the question I have for you is, I'm hearing language, and I'm waiting to hear the answer to that question. I think Dara came right out and asked it. But the answer wasn't forthcoming. But I'll make it my only question, is that, is this parking regimen being aimed at the very significant revenues that the taxpayers on Lake Temagami, the people who own cottages and are already paying taxes, are they being included and being expected to pay the parking fee?
Again, I did say this earlier, and my answer is still the same. We have not come to a full decision as to whether it's going to apply to residents or what degree it's going to apply to residents. At this point, we're looking at bringing in a regimen, bringing forward something to council, and council will make the final decisions on this at the end of the day. But what we're bringing forward is something that's going to be looking forward to treating everybody fairly. Now, that said, and you brought it up, so you've opened the door for me. How many of those homes out there have 3, 4, 5, 6 cars sitting out there right now? I mean, I'll be honest, my boys come up, I've got 3 extra vehicles sitting there, and they're sitting in my driveway. If I was sitting out on the lake, and I'm sure there's a bunch of them out there that are in the same boat as I'm in, that when their family all shows up, do we give it all away for free for everybody that comes up that's visiting? We got to draw the line somewhere, and this is something that's going to have to be discussed.
Okay, fair enough. Like, that never entered in. I have no sense from my discussions with the people on Lake Temagami how they feel about when their children or their grandchildren come up to visit, whether they should be expected to pay when they're not, in fact, the taxpayers. It's either the father or the grandparents that are the property owner. And in all my discussions, we kind of framed it in that regard, and children and grandchildren never came into it. But I can get a sense though. I'll ask you a question. Do you know how many cars are parked down at the end of the Lakes Temagami Access Road on an average during the summer?
Well, I have not done a count in recent years. 2022 was the last time I did a count, and I don't remember what it was then.
Okay. Yeah. I can assume that if you don't know how many cars are down at the end of the line road, you don't know the breakdown between Crown land users and tax-paying cottagers.
No, we don't have that. We don't have those records at the present time. When we did the count back then, we were doing a count as to the number of vehicles that were in parking lots, in the parking spots. We were doing counts as the number of vehicles that were lining the roads, the contractor parking, and those that were over into the other area that we currently don't have the ability to enforce. We did all those counts, so we knew what those numbers looked like and what that potentially can come back into as far as parking spots go. Could we go down this road? Sure, we could. And so, what you're suggesting is that you'd like to see a traffic count done.
Well, I think you're going to, if you're going to exclude, like the reason why I'm confused about this, because nothing's carved in stone. This is what you said. We could potentially do carve-outs for cottagers. We don't want to put an additional tax burden on cottagers. This is kind of, I can't draw a conclusion from language like that.
Okay,
and but I would think that if you're going to do a business plan, I mean, you can scope it, which I think is what you're at right now. You can go into a feasibility study. You would think that would be something you might want to do before you embark on this. Again, going back to Nolan's comment, so we end up with something orderly and sensible. And so, for that, I would think you're gonna want, as a prelude to doing a business plan, like how many people are down there? If you're gonna carve out cottagers, how many of them are cottagers? And then what is our potential market in terms of crown land users? But now, I'll move on to my next question. Like, while this is all preliminary, again, I get a mixed message on that. I can see why you would think this is preliminary, because I think there are big gaps in the information package in support of this. Personally, I don't think this issue is ready for council, but hey, that's up to councilors to decide whether it's ready for them or not. But the thing is that I just don't think it's ready. I don't think you have all the information you need this time. But I have the feeling that there's a goal to have this in place by July the 1st. Am I right on that? Has there been any talk from staff? I know council hasn't made a decision on this, but have staff had discussions indicating that this is going to happen by July the 1st? And the reason why I say that as well is because, this is an issue that's going to be directed primarily at seasonal residents. By the way, how many people in here are seasonal residents? Anyway,
There's no question that the room is full of seasonal residents. I have no question on that. As far as July 1st as a deadline date, no, there was no discussion on that. As a matter of fact, there's been no discussion to push this thing through at any particular speed. When we go back in time and go back in history, I've been dealing with this nightmare, and I call it that because that's the way I feel about it right now. Since 2019, when I first came to the municipality, I was told in the first year I was here that we wanted a bylaw. We've moved forward, we got things going. It died. 2021, 2022, and finally in 22, we got our first pass. 23 before we got the Attorney General sign off on the bylaw. And now that we have the sign off, we're ready to go. The only thing that happened that didn't have was the rules when it came to everything else. So the bylaw, and it's not a parking bylaw, it's a traffic and parking bylaw. So it covers everything. So it covers the OPP and the roads and everything else. We're covering everything in one bylaw. And with that in place now, we're able to deal with a whole lot of things. The question about whether this is a resident issue or not, that's a whole different subject. And whether or not we have residents, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a resident that pays taxes in this town too. And at the same time, I don't feel that my taxes should exempt me from paying for parking at any lodge that in this town. I don't feel that anybody, their taxes are for their property and for the services they get for their property, not for the landing, which is being looked after and maintained by the municipality. Your tax dollars as a group are paying for all that. All we're saying is let's bring forward a bylaw that brings forward fees and charges to make it so that it's less burden on our taxes. I mean, I don't know about you, but over the last couple of years, the tax hits I've been taking have not made me a happy camper. And I don't want to see another one of those. But that's where we're going if we don't do something with it.
Boy, you're just begging this response. A user fee for people who are trying to access their properties, who are seasonal residents, right? And they need to have a parking lot to put their cars in. It's like they're driving. They're already paying taxes. I mean, there's no other way of looking at this parking fee. It's a user fee. It's a tax. It's a tax increase on seasonal residents. And I can see why it wouldn't bother you because I know where your house is. You're on the mainland. And I bet your position regarding this issue will vary depending upon where you live. If you live on the mainland, it's probably a great idea to put in parking fees at the end of the mine road because it's a tax increase on seasonal residents, sometimes referred to as seasonal visitors in the municipal documentation. But if you live on the mainland, well, obviously you're exempt. You're not going to pay that because you've got your own driveway and you don't have to worry about that. Now, the people on Lake Bonnie, the bill out there is on ice. So they need that parking lot. That's the way they access their properties.
Okay, so at that point, we have been talking about bringing this in increments. We're not talking about ramming it down everybody's throat. And what we're talking about is urban core. This is the urban core. And if you want to talk about who that affects me and probably any one of us that are sitting in this room right now that come into this urban core to sit there and come into that launch over there, or those parking lots over by the medical center, or over by the fire hall, or over by the train station. Every one of those there are the concerns at the moment that we're talking about, where everybody comes in, just drops their garbage. And I'm saying it that way because that's what I'm dealing with at the moment. I got trailers sitting over here that have been sitting over there for months. Some of them are even a year now that I can't deal with because I don't have a proper bylaw. And at the end of the day, those parking spaces, if they were being paid for by the residents or anybody, or even the daily visitors, would end up covering the cost of maintaining those parking lots, get the signage up on there, and clean it up so that we don't have to worry about the look. I've got a complaint that I've been sitting on for 6 months now over at the train station for a truck that's sitting over there. It has not moved, Quebec plates on it, and I can't do a darn thing about it because I don't have a proper bylaw. That's what I'm trying to get rectified.
Well, yes, I can see where you might want to clean garbage up, and I mean, I thought you had the authority already with the 23 bylaw, which authorizes the cleanup of garbage. And also you've got a property standards bylaw as well, which I would assume would apply to municipal land. But you see, the thing is, I'm very sympathetic to what you're saying, because I too own a property here in town. And I know precisely how often I use those parking lots. You know how often I use those parking lots? Never.
Okay.
Never. I never have to. And neither do you. The only thing I use as a resident here in town is I use the trail ramp. I do use the trail ramp because I store boats at a marina here, and it's just more convenient to have it put in the water here and drive it down the lake.
Okay, so on answer to one of your comments there, first of all, property standards does not apply to municipal parking lots. That's where you have rules, you have a bylaw, and that's the rule. Property standards is under the Ontario Building Code, and it's to deal with properties, private properties. If I wanted to go out to the municipality, that would mean I'd have to issue an order against the municipality and then run the ramp through that process. That's a process that no municipality wants to go down. And so that's not one of them. The 2023 bylaw, it gave us the authority to enforce our parking bylaw, but it doesn't have the rules right now. And we don't have rules sitting on those parking lots. Put signs up with the rules and what those are required. And yeah, all day long we can start enforcing them. But right now, there's not a sign on any one of our parking lots that tells everybody what the rules are. Unless you can properly identify to the person coming in there what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, you can't enforce the bylaw.
I'll defer to your expertise on the cleaning up of the parking lots and the, what's required there. But I'm just going to come back to the original reason I got up here, because I'm just going to reiterate my first question, and I'm looking for a fairly succinct answer here. But will tax-paying cottagers have to pay parking fees to access their cottages? I think, are the cottagers in here? Did I ask that right? I'll just ask her.
Yeah.
Did I get it there? Did I get it right? Okay, there's my question. Yeah. Well, you can have the mic next. But anyway, can you give me the answer to that question?
At this moment, no, because the question, and I have said,
Well, I know what.
I've already given an answer. You don't like the answer, so you keep coming back.
I just want to get
No,
a clear
the
one.
answer was that we have not come to a clear decision yet. However, that we do see ability to either give breaks to the residents or give them some free permits to allow them to have the opportunity. We're not necessarily saying that all the residents are going to be paying. We have looked at opportunities and offers. We have talked about what we can do with it, but we have not come to a final decision on it.
Okay. Next.
Okay, we got someone on the.
So, Ryan, probably because we already have Nolan,
Okay, Ryan, you're online?
Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's actually Bob Sorlin. I have an island 510. Quick question. Currently the island cottages pay a premium on our property tax so that we help maintain the access road and the parking and the things of that nature. The residents of the actual town site, I believe, are not added to that extra premium. My question is, if you added parking costs, would that reduce our taxes? And I guess the short answer is it's just one of those areas. I know you're going to say there's nothing been decided, and that's fine, but it should be considered if you're going to look at uh, putting in these parking fees that we already kind of pay to have that parking lot in place through our taxes. And either I'll pay for parking if you take an equivalent off of the taxes that I pay, the premium that I pay on that. So that was my question.
Okay, so let me answer on that one. First of all, the maintenance of the Lake Temagami access road is paid for through the general tax base, not through individuals off of Lake Temagami. I'm not sure where that misconception comes from. But because it's under general tax base, it's coming out of every taxpayer in this municipality for the entire road. So it doesn't mean that you're paying a premium. Where you pay a premium is for your other services such as your waste pickup, your what do you got up there? Your waterway navigation cycles systems and everything else. Those are the premiums where you're paying extra. You're not paying extra on the road. It's a general tax base. Now, as far as getting a reduction on the taxes, just because we're bringing in a payment system, I can't really say that would be where you would be able to justify that one. This is a totally separate system. Okay, Josh.
Good, my name is Josh Campbell, I'm a permanent resident here in Temagami. Daryl has said this numerous times tonight, okay? The municipality is still looking for ways, trying to come up with ideas for residents and ratepayers already, okay? Everybody keeps hounding the fact, or keeps going after the municipality. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do for us? I don't wanna pay for it. Give the municipality a chance to come up with a solution for the ratepayers, okay? It's been very disconcerting standing here and watching the municipality and they're all get attacked by, anyways, it's very disheartening right now, okay? Secondly, when we lived in Innisfil before coming up here, okay, Innisfil Beach Park, very popular area. Every resident of Innisfil got one pass, and that pass got a fixed your vehicle. That allowed you free parking and free use of the ramps. Okay, so that is one maybe option for the municipality. Sorry. So secondly, I've been talking to cottagers of the canal system and people coming in the municipality. They like the honk system because they're familiar with it already. Right, residents of Toronto, and a lot of the other municipalities that have honk, use honk, are familiar with the system and like it. So, yeah, moving forward, I think this bylaw is a good idea. Right, the phased in approach that the municipality is taking right now, I believe is correct. Start with the urban core and slowly spread it in, make sure it's going to work, and advance it from there. So I fully support this moving forward.
Hi, I'm Donna McIntyre and I'm on Rabbit Lake. And I agree. I agree that there needs to be a parking policy. I canoe a lot, I kayak a lot, and I never ever park without having to pay for 7 days, whatever, 10 days out when you're paying day parking. So I completely agree with that. I also agree that it needs to be managed. So the only way to manage it and know what's happening is to have some kind of management system. Also agree that residents, permanent residents, cottage residents need some kind of, need some kind of confirmation that you're paying taxes and there is somewhere to park. But I also think that just because you bought a cottage and it's a remote cottage, you have not bought a parking spot. When we bought our cottage, I didn't buy a parking spot. So the assumption that you have a parking spot is an assumption that people have gone on historically, and that's not necessarily true. So I think this is a good place to kind of start setting standards on that. But I do think we need to take into account that we are taxpayers, and there needs to be some advantages to that. Yeah, the last thing I wanted to say is just because what I hear about the Temagami Road, are there enough parking spots? So do we have places that they are going to be gone, and even the cottagers do not have spots to park?
So as it was indicated earlier, the current area for the parking right now does not cover everything. And the reason being is we have a waiting list currently sitting there with some people that have been sitting on it. Longest one I'm over on the waiting list right now is 20 years waiting for a parking spot. However, some of this could be rectified, as it was already brought up about expanding the LUPs. If the Ministry of Natural Resources will agree to expand the LUPs, we have an ability there. One of the suggestions I put out, and I've been almost shot for, was actually taking away some of the contractor parking. And I've already been told I'll be lynched, so I'm not going to touch on that one right now. Okay, sorry. LUPs are the land use permits that are issued by the province, and they're given to the municipality. We pay for a yearly fee for those permits, and those permits set out the standards on what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. As long as we comply with the zoning bylaws, we are allowed to operate on them. And we have been working with the ministry on all the ones down in the area of the mine landing. Have an LUP for the Rabbit Lake, one for Castles Lake, one for Net Lake, and then we have a few other ones in this general area. The rest of the areas that we're talking about are actually urban or municipally owned properties.
So if when this parking bylaw gets going and there's a better understanding of how many permits are needed and used, does that help increase the land use policy? Can you expand that?
We always have the ability to go back to the ministry. They were starting to talk with us about a year ago. I left the municipality about the time when they started having the conversations, and I did not follow up with where they went on this. I believe they're ready to go back and have some more conversations. I believe the mayor was supporting that idea and wanted to move forward with some of it. We are still looking for rectifying the area down in the down in the landing by bringing forward the conversation with tech, and hopefully they'll enter into a lease agreement so we can take on the parking area there, which will rectify a lot of the parking spots.
Thanks.
Just have a question for you, Daryl. Just wondering if you might give an example of revenue and similar tours and location, what kind of revenue we're looking at to offset our taxes. So in 2023, as you said, the taxes were up 8%. Last year, 6%. This year, we're looking at, if we don't get some kind of revenue in this town, we're going to go broke, or we're going to have another 8 to 10% tax increase. So as a senior who's retired, I really am worried about living here. I've lived here 37 years. I've lived on Lake Temagami. I had a business there, and I've lived here. But we really need to do something. And I don't know if maybe you have some other ideas how to bring in some revenue into this town. Because we don't have a mine, we don't have a mill, nothing on the horizon that looks like some big taxpayers coming in. So there's nowhere in Canada that you can come in and park. You know, our consultant we had in Calgary from Business Development Bank said There's nowhere in Canada, you can come park your truck, trailer, boat, whatever you've got, for 2-3 weeks, a month, for free. Because if you don't pay for something, people don't respect something. And it's all free here and they don't respect it. You can drive down any of the roads and you see fridges, garbage. People don't have any respect for Temagami.
So what I can say on this is that coming from an area where we heavily use parking as a revenue source, and I know that these numbers are not what we're going to reflect up here, but in Mississauga, back in '88, we were already bringing in $1 million plus every year in parking revenues. That was nothing to sneeze at that time. It went over tenfold over in 10 years. Mississauga, though, is not what we're looking at. We're talking about a municipality of 900. It goes up to, I believe it's 2,500 in the summertime. So with that in mind, and bringing in those kind of numbers, and bringing in the number of day trippers that we have coming in through all our landings, those are the ones that we're looking to see addressed more than anything else. Yes, there will be some cost to the residents, and those are only for those residents that are going to be using those landings and those parking lots. But we do have the ability to set the rules to make it so that they won't have it hit as hard. As it was indicated earlier about about contractors, there's a huge one right now. The contractor parking is used and abused, and we know it. I wanted to see it attached as part and parcel of the project right now, but once again, because we have an MOU agreement, a memorandum of understanding agreement with the TFN on the parking down there, and they're doing a joint review right now. Until that part's done, we're not touching that part of the parking. So we're looking at the other parts that we can actually address right now, which is why we're looking at our parking. And as an example, if we were charged $10 a day on the parking on the Mine Landing Road, on the north side of the road where it's on street parking, at $10 a day, on any given weekend, you can go down there and find 30 to 40 vehicles lined up. And I did the count myself. If we get 30 count and do that as low one at $10 a day, there's $300 every day. If we do that all weekend long, we got $900 coming in over the weekend. That's going to cover the cost of anything that we're looking at putting in place right now. And the cost of honk is actually very minimal because we're not talking about putting in machines. We're not talking about having to worry about internet or anything else. We're talking about QR codes. And the QR codes go on signs that can be put in locations where we know they can actually get connectivity. The other part of that is, and the suggestion was brought to me today, was about looking at QR codes for like our tower. There's a revenue right there. If we were to charge $3 to $5 a day, and we put that on a QR code on a little pamphlet and stick it over in our provincial park, and let the person zoom in on that little QR code, and then make the trip over to the park. For everyone that we get coming out of that park that comes over to visit our tower, there's revenue for this municipality. And with the numbers that are coming into those, that park and are using our services here, we hope to see that they're not just using the tower, but they're actually going into our gas stations, into our grocery stores, liquor stores, everything else we have here in town. And right now, we need to bring something into this municipality. Yeah.
Harold, just a quick question. Has there been any thought of widening, and I know my prime concern is the Mine Road, Lake Conmy access. Is there any consideration given into widening out that road section? Because in the summertime, it's north and south on either side of that road.
Well, that's the reason that we made it prohibited parking on the south side of the road.
That doesn't stop.
I know that, but the reason it doesn't stop them is it hasn't seen the enforcement. We put the enforcement in there, and you're going to clear up, and I know that from experience. Things dry up when you start hitting the tickets, especially when they're looking at $40 to $50 tickets every time we show up. You start hitting them every day of the weekend, and by the time you walk out at the end of your fishing trip, you now got $200 sitting on your vehicle. you're not gonna be a happy camper. Online.
Here's Nolan Jorgensen again. Just taking a couple notes here as people have been talking. Daryl, you brought up about an example about your sons there that, you know, you might have 5 cars. I completely agree. I think it's actually I think a huge issue with why we see so many cars at the mine landing now. I know when I grew up coming, you know, since before I could walk, till now, people carpooled a little more than they do right now. Um, you'd get, you know, a full car of a family coming up, and so maybe a family of 2 or sorry, a family of 10 were in 2 cars. Now you get, you know, every child and grandchild and everyone bringing their own car, which I get. It's a busier time nowadays, but to your point, and it sounds like you're trying to be committed to. I know it's not you necessarily making the decisions. Unfortunately, you're the one up there, the microphone. To the point of, you know, you're not trying to make a huge burden on taxpayers and property owners, that whether the solution becomes you know, discounted slips for guests and stuff that they have, so that it becomes reasonable. Like if it's just maybe only like 2 slips on top of your main slip for your guests and stuff, so it's not such a, you know, it kind of then goes to my next point. There's been some comments as to why, you know, basically why is it your right to have a parking spot? Well, it kind of it mixes in with how convoluted Lake Temagami's become with rules. You know, there's no road access to the lake, which I think is great. I think it makes us special. But as a result, how do you expect people to get to their cottage? They have to have a place to park. And if we all expect that, you have to understand why, you know, these taxpayers are concerned about the potential costs coming through. And I know that you can't speak to it a lot. I think a lot of people though are feeling, you know, how rushed the garbage thing was done, that, you know, it's not always best interest being kept in mind for people on the lake here. You know, Brad brought up that, you know, it's feeling like we're attacking Daryl. I hope you don't feel like that completely, Daryl. It's just that there's a concern whether how much these conversations are going to be taken completely serious by the time it goes through the Washoe Council and Mayor, and ultimately why I think people keep repeating the same point here.
So I'd like to reiterate on something there. That's why this is a public consultation. It is to take in everybody's comments, no matter who they are, how small that comment is, and every one of them will be reviewed and brought into a complete report that we brought to council. That way council can make an informed decision and not just a rush decision. Anybody else?
Thanks, Daryl. Susan Olenek again, Rabbit Lake. So I just want to comment on parking, as I think Donna alluded to, cottages didn't come with parking. When our neighborhood was developed in 1970 and lots were opened up by the province put in the landing and the parking, and that was to be our access point, our driveway for our cottages. That's before we were part of the municipality. My position obviously is I'd rather not pay for parking. That's the starting position. However, if we did have to pay for parking, I would expect to receive something for the fee I pay for that permit. And I just wonder what it is I can expect to receive. The chance to get a parking spot or a guaranteed parking spot. And that's what I would expect. If I'm buying a seasonal permit, I want to know that that's my spot.
So again, though, that on that particular comment, that's why these are here for recommendations right now. They're not set in stone, and everybody gets a chance to provide their comments. And that's why we have 4 different schedules, because each area has got different unique needs, so to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that
Yeah.
I would expect to get something for a fee. If I'm paying for a spot for the season and happen to go out for the day and I come back and there's no spot, I'd be angry. I want a spot. Thank you.
Daryl, if you can correct me if I'm mistaken, I believe the honk system has the ability to no longer issue permits based on the number of permits that have already been purchased.
That's correct. And that, once again, goes back to whether or not this comes down to a daily, weekly, or even a monthly or annual permit. We have not come to those decisions yet, and that's part and parcel of this. Bring back the comments, and then we can get an informed decision made based on those comments. Because I'll be honest, I know Rabbit Lake. I've been down there since '81. It's not new to me. And I've been out on Rabbit Point, so I know the area very well. And I used to park at that end. I know what it was like back then. And back then, you ran risk. If you left your boat there or you left your car there, you were running risk. And back then, everybody tied their boats to trees because there was no place to properly park. The municipality has spent a load of money down there, putting in docks, retaining walls, and everything else to make things better for the parking down there. That itself comes back onto the general taxpayers' backs. And that's what we're talking about rectifying, is some of that, so that the cost of that in the future, when future repairs have to come in, is going to be looked after through some of the costs that are provided through fees and charges.
How many people are currently waitlisted for a parking spot in on
I couldn't tell you that right offhand. I don't have those numbers with me tonight. Any other comments? Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for bringing in the comments and bringing forward things. We are putting the questionnaire on the website tonight. Everybody has an opportunity to fill it out electronically or through the paper copy. We're going to hold it for 2 weeks, and then we can bring forward a report to council after that. We hand it in right here at the office.
All of the verbal stuff today will be included?
Everything will be included because it's all been recorded.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yep.
Just so everyone knows, probably be tomorrow, I'm hoping it'll be tomorrow, that it will, this meeting will be up on YouTube, and then I'll put a link on the Facebook, or sorry, on the website. If you go to the front of the website, there's a thing that says public consultations. We're going to keep that there so it has information on any public consultations or any past public consultations. If you click it, the resources will be there. This meeting will be there. All the resources that are pertinent to this meeting are on there already. If there's ways that we can make that better, please let me know on the I do the website. So just send it to just call someone and ask for the guy who does the website. I'm certainly trying to make it as best as we can. We want to have the consultations matter. This isn't a public information session. This is a public consultation. It's a completely different thing. We're both firm believers in democracy. So we want your voice to be heard to council, who ultimately make the decision. There'll be 2 weeks to give to fill out the forms. You can fill them out online, download them, or bring them to the office. The reason we have that 2-week period is so that we've got a little bit of time to prepare them for council. Then it's advertised through the council meeting, and council is to receive all of our comments.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Off the record? Wait till they turn off the thing, you can off the record.
Did you get that started? I want to.